When it comes to prayer, every religion has its own vibe. Catholics have rosaries, Muslims have prayer mats, and Jews talk to God too, 3 times a day in fact. Step into any synagogue around the world, and you'll see the same words, the same prayers, the same complicated choreography of sitting and standing and bowing. But even though we're saying the same words, different Jewish communities have wildly different approaches to prayer. And those differences affect everything from the way synagogues are constructed, to the way prayer books are formatted, to how prayers are said. So why do these Jewish communities pray in different ways? In Jewish tradition, prayer is known as avodah shebalev, which translates roughly to the work of the heart. But how do you do that avodah, that work? Well, depends who you ask. There are as many ways to be Jewish as there are Jews. But when it comes to prayer in traditional Judaism, there are 3 main schools of thought. And the way each community views prayer can also give us a window into how different Jewish communities conceive of the universe. Buckle up, because it's about to get mystical. School of thought number 1, Sephardim. Sephardic Jews spent centuries in Spain, Portugal, North Africa, and the Middle East, and their prayer traditions are inflected with these influences. Walk into any Sephardic synagogue during services, and you'll notice 2 things. 1, the seats all face one another. 2, the prayers are chanted out loud in unison with a beautiful Middle Eastern lilt. It's as though the whole community is praying in a single voice. And that's because the Sephardic style of prayer emphasizes the connection between the individual and the community. So far, so good, but it's about to get wild, because Sephardic prayer isn't just about reciting words, it's about tying on spiritual worlds.
What does that mean?
Okay, so you know how we live in a 3D world with the 4th dimension being time? Well, according to some theories in physics, those 4 dimensions might be just the tip of the iceberg. According to some super smart scientists, there are layers of existence that we can't even begin to perceive, all tangled together like a ball of yarn. But you don't need to be a quantum physicist to believe there are layers upon layers of reality, which is good because the last time I studied physics was 10th grade. Jewish mystics have been talking about these other dimensions for centuries, except they call them spiritual worlds. Think of it like this. You're hanging out on Earth, staring up at the sun. Kids, don't try this at home. You think you're just seeing the sun, right? Beaming at you from 91.4 million miles away. But in between you and the sun lie layers and layers of atmosphere, mostly invisible barriers that filter the sun's light before it can reach the Earth. Without these layers, the sun's energy would be too intense to sustain life, and we'd all be burnt to a crisp. Okay, cool science lesson, but what does this all have to do with prayer? Well, in this analogy, those layers of atmosphere are the many spiritual worlds, each tempering God's infinite energy so we don't immediately get consumed by holy fire, which I imagine is even less fun than getting roasted by the sun. In Jewish tradition, our prayers help us navigate all these spiritual worlds towards God. They give us the tools to burst through all the atmospheric layers and connect with all that divine energy. When we're done praying, we climb back down, our souls recharge and energize with all of God's blessings. At least that's how Sephardic Jews understand prayer, and that's why a Sephardic prayer book is divided into 4 sections, one for each layer we climb through to reach the divine. And so we end our prayers totally transformed, suffused with our daily dose of godly energy, having done the serious work of the heart as a community. I love this. I love the idea that prayer takes us through all the mystical, invisible layers of the world, getting us as close to God as possible. It's empowering, it's ennobling, and it's a reminder that no matter how dire our physical circumstances may be, we always have the power to transcend. School of thought number 2, Ashkenazim. Ashkenazi Jews spent centuries in European countries like Germany, Poland, and Russia, where they developed their own distinct customs and schools of thought. Walk into an Ashkenazi synagogue and you'll notice that everyone sits in rows, facing forwards. Listen hard and you'll hear the quiet murmuring of individual prayers. No communal chanting here. Ashkenazi prayers are an intimate, personal experience. That's because Ashkenazim don't see prayer as a cosmic voyage towards God, but as a journey inwards. Their work of the heart is a very specific form of work, a kind of self-discipline to purify the heart and perfect their character. See, the Hebrew word for pray is a reflexive verb, meaning judge or assess. And in case it's been a while since high school English, a reflexive verb means you do the action to yourself. Enjoy yourself, wash yourself, feed yourself, etc. For Ashkenazim, lahitpalel doesn't mean to pray in the sense of asking for something. It means to judge yourself. not in a Mean Girls burn book kind of way, but in the looking inwards and reflecting kind of way. Am I living up to my potential? Am I the person I'm meant to be? Flip through the Siddur, the Jewish prayer book, and you'll notice it's not just a birthday wish list.
No way! Wait!
We pray for lofty things like justice and wisdom and redemption in a perfected world. But according to this super important Ashkenazi rabbi, these prayers aren't just about informing God of all the things we need, like justice or peace or rain, or a shortcut to learning Hebrew. Instead, we say these prayers to transform ourselves. We aren't changing God's mind, we're changing ours. In praying for highfalutin things like wisdom, we're making a commitment. Today, I will strive for wisdom. I will strive for peace. I will do everything I can to perfect the world a little. We're not just asking for impossible things. We're reminding ourselves of what's important, committing ourselves to striving and growing, leaning on God for the strength and the inspiration to do our best, while recognizing that ultimately, we're utterly dependent on God for everything we need. This process of reflection doesn't just stay in your head. When you truly engage with prayer, it spills over into your actions. It helps you show up in the world as a better, more compassionate person. That's what I love about the Ashkenazi approach to prayer. When we focus on the words and turn inward, prayer becomes a tool for growth. It's not just about what you say, it's about who you become. School of thought number 3, Chassidut. When Hasidism began in 18th century Eastern Europe, it turned the Jewish world upside down. This spiritual movement emphasized that anyone, from the most elite scholar to the lowliest peasant, could build a deep, personal, and joyful relationship to God. A Hasidic shul might look more or less like any other Ashkenazi synagogue, but the service couldn't be more different in spirit. Remember, Hasidism is all about joy, so you might hear happy yelling or clapping, and you'll likely see dancing, swaying, or even jumping. And since Hasidim are all about cultivating a personal relationship with God, prayer plays a big role. The Hasidic understanding of prayer starts with an idea from the Zohar, the foundational text of Kabbalah. The time of prayer is a time of war.
What?
I know, I told you this is a movement rooted in joy, and it is, but the stakes are incredibly high. Chassidut says that life is a constant battle between two parts of ourselves. They're the original creators of the "inside you there are two wolves" meme. There's the wolf that craves comfort and pleasure. That little voice that tells you, come on, watch another hour of TV, eat that entire bag of chips, stay up late doom scrolling on TikTok, sleep in. This side of us is completely self-centered. It's where our egos and lusts and insecurities live. Judaism calls it the animal soul. And while it can be healthy and appropriate to rest and relax and indulge, those desires can take over if we let them. Then there's the other wolf, the side of us that yearns to connect with something bigger. It's a quiet inner whisper of conscience, the voice that says, let's do something that matters. This is a part of us that seeks purpose and spiritual growth. This is where our humility and kindness and compassion live. This divine soul is completely devoted to bringing light into the world. And according to Hasidic thought, our two souls are in constant conflict, pulling us in opposite directions. The Zohar calls prayer a time of war because it's during prayer that these two forces clash most intensely. But here's what I love. According to Chassidut, prayer isn't a battle to obliterate or suppress our animal soul. After all, the animal soul is a part of us. We're not trying to resist it entirely. We pray to harness it, to redirect all its raw and yearning energy towards the lofty goals of our divine soul. That is the essence of Avodah Shebalev, the work of the heart. The work here is a kind of self-discipline, channeling our basest and most self-serving instincts toward a higher purpose, redirecting our passion and energy towards a pursuit of everything good and godly. Justice, peace, morality, wisdom, kindness, compassion. According to Chassidut, there's nothing more beautiful and ecstatic than feeling our souls fulfill their ultimate purpose, connecting with God, plugging into divine energy, redirecting our basest desires towards making the world better. So no matter how you practice or what you believe, prayer can be a truly transformative experience. It can take us on a journey outwards through every cosmic dimension. It can bring us inwards to examine our hearts and souls. And it can bring every side of us into the perfect harmony we strive for, joyful and ready to bring light into the world in that specific and personal way that's unique to each of us. So the next time you walk into a synagogue or mutter a little prayer under your breath, remember that you're climbing a ladder to the cosmos. You're excavating your deepest personal truth. You're channeling your animal soul for a higher purpose. You're doing the deep avodah of the heart.